Asterisk asterisk, the silent neighbor. Asterisk asterisk. Mark had always considered himself a rational man. When he moved into his new apartment, he barely paid attention to the elderly man living next door. At first glance, his neighbor seemed harmless, a pale man in his 70s who never spoke a word and rarely left his apartment. Mark thought nothing of it, just another quiet neighbor in a building full of strangers. However, strange things started happening almost immediately. Late at night, when the building was otherwise silent, Mark would hear shuffling noises coming from the apartment next door. At first, it was faint, almost like someone moving furniture. Then it grew louder, footsteps, pacing, and the occasional dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Mark tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the eccentricities of living in an old building. But the sounds began to escalate. One night, Mark awoke to a loud thump coming from the other side of his bedroom wall. He lay there, heart pounding, as the sound of scratching slowly started to emerge from the wall itself. It wasn't the casual scrape of a mouse, but the deliberate, insistent scratching of fingernails. Mark's heart raced. He considered calling the police, but what would he say? The scratching continued for hours, almost rhythmic, driving him mad. The next day, Mark knocked on his neighbor's door, but there was no answer. The building's superintendent, a weathered man in his 60s, shrugged when Mark asked about the old man. "He's been living here longer than I have," the superintendent said. "Never caused any trouble, never spoke much. Best to just leave him be." But Mark couldn't leave it be. That night, the noises grew worse. The pacing became frantic, and the scratching intensified until it felt like it was inside Mark's own apartment. Then came the whispers, low, incoherent murmurs that seeped through the walls, wrapping around Mark's mind. He couldn't make out the words, but he knew they weren't meant for him. The voices were pleading, desperate and filled with agony. Finally, unable to stand it any longer, Mark stormed out of his apartment and pounded on his neighbor's door. "Are you okay in there?" he shouted. No response. The hallway was deathly quiet. Determined, Mark forced the door open. Inside, the apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no signs of life. Dust coated the floor, and the air was thick with decay. But something else caught Mark's eye. The walls were covered in deep scratches, as if someone had been clawing at them for years. His heart dropped when he noticed dark red streaks smeared along the floor, leading to a small, blackened door in the corner of the living room. Terrified but drawn to the mystery, Mark approached the door. The whispers grew louder as he turned the knob. The door creaked open to reveal a small, cramped room filled with photographs of people he had never seen before, all of them smiling, all of them standing in front of the same apartment building. And then Mark saw the last photograph. It was of him. The silent neighbor stood in the background, smiling, his face twisted into something that no longer looked human.